Hello, everybody. So there is an article, a couple of articles, and I wanted to talk for a moment about some of the developments, and some of the things that have been happening so far. And this right here, this article is out of the Grio, and it's it's in reference to Breonna Taylor's family, and I believe they're going along with pursuing. Trying to create some social change. I believe they have some help with other grassroots organizations. And I did see a website, and I believe that's what this is, change.org petitions for Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. They break records actually. So this is by Renee G. So the petition website revealed the impact of Black Lives Matter movement amid the life-altering pandemic. And as related to the pandemic, I might bop in and out some of my own things that, or findings, things that I've experienced in myself since this pandemic. A lot of things have occurred. A lot of changes have been made. A lot of changes are still being made. A lot of new developments are being made. And so during a year fraught with police brutality, a global pandemic, and an ousted president who won't admit defeat, which that is still happening even right now. I saw an article where he's trying to still overturn the election. He's got another plan after all the other plans have pretty much fallen flat. He's come up with something else, and people are waiting for a COVID package. And it's supposedly on his desk, and he all he has to do is sign it. He vetoed the last one because he felt like Americans, he says they need more money, but I believe his primary reason for doing this is because he knows it's holding up people. And it's also another way to get back at Republicans because a lot of them that are still active pretty much have moved on and they didn't support him in his efforts in trying to overturn the election. And there wasn't a collective agreement on all of that. So they have basically moved on and they're trying to be about the business of running the country. And Donald Trump is not really feeling that. He's upset and he's harboring a lot of frustration and anger. And he's not taking this defeat well. And so that's why it says he won't admit defeat. So he won't concede with Biden. He still hasn't conceded. And so we're just weeks away from the change over from the Trump administration to the Biden and Kamala administration. So, or what used to be Trump and Pence is now Biden and Kamala Harris. So many have voiced their frustrations on social media, and some have took to the streets in protest. So there's still protests going on, and many others have decided to raise awareness on issues important to them with online petitions on this site like change.org. So this is a site I believe that the family and some other people that are involved in social change have put together a site in reference to Breonna Taylor and I believe George Floyd. But Breonna Taylor's mother, I believe she has a site up where you can also see some of the things that are listed as things that need to be um, addressed in terms of what has happened and what is happening and what should happen in the future in social change, and especially in communities of color. So 2020 has been a historic year in many ways, and it was no different on our platform. So this was a Michael Jones, managing director of a campaign at change.org per CNN. So hundreds of millions of Americans have came to the change.org to sign the petitions on the most important issues affecting them this year. So those are the things that I believe this may be the site that I was looking at in reference um, to Breonna Taylor's family. So over 9,400 have signed this petition to replace Confederate statues with a Bozeman Memorial. And so, and there's more going on in this. So these two women are holding up a sign of Breonna Taylor doing a rally in September on the 18th of 2020 in Louisville, Kentucky. So the organization saw a surge of petitions that were created and signed, as well as an increase in campaigns that were considered victories after they achieved the goals. So the group announced that this year the petitions are calling for justice of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, and Ahmaud Arbery, and it broke records on its site, becoming the Change.org's most signed petitions of all time. So the death of George Floyd, who was 46 at the time, who died during a police encounter that ended with an officer kneeling on his neck while he shouted that he couldn't breathe, sparked a nationwide protest and calls to end the police brutality and racism. So far, more than 19 million people have signed this petition, making it the largest petition of the organizations in history. And so all four former police officers that were involved in the incident will stand trial in 2021. So the judge allows cameras in George Floyd's murder trial, dismissing prosecutors' concerns. So there's going to be cameras in there, so that's going to be probably one of the most watched trials out of some of the others. Probably out of I believe there were some other trials like O.J. Simpson, and it's going to create a whole lot of media frenzy. So Breonna Taylor, who was 26, an EMT, was killed by police executing a no-knock warrant while Taylor was asleep in her bed. So more than 11 million people have signed that petition. That was launched by Loralee Hoje, 19-year-old student from Fort Lee, New Jersey. So Elijah McClain, 23 years of age, was stopped by police in Aurora, Colorado, I believe that's what it was. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, while walking home from a convenience store after he was described as a suspicious person by a 911 caller. So McClain objected to the officer's contact, and one of the officers placed him in a chokehold, and McClain lost consciousness. So he was given the drug ketamine by the paramedics, which led to a heart attack, and he died 3 days later. So more than 5.6 million people have signed a petition so far. So Ahmaud Arbery, who was 25 years of age, was shot and killed while jogging in Georgia. And so a father and a son were arrested and facing murder trial in Arbery's death after a video had surfaced of the father and the son were arrested and are facing these murder charges. So the video had went viral, and so nearly 4 million people have signed that petition seeking justice for Ahmaud Arbery. So some of the top petitions in 2020 include making Kobe Bryant the new logo for the NBA, declaring the KKK a terrorist organization, calling for a $2,000 stimulus checks amid the coronavirus pandemic, and canceling student loan debt. So those are the things that have been petitioned. So people do want the $2,000 stimulus check, but also people are kind of on the fence in some ways with some of it, because some people might need money like right now, and it's kind of being stalled. So Shifting gears here, Virginia deputy was fired. So the reason why he was fired is he posted far right calls for violence on social media. And so this Virginia sheriff's deputy was fired Saturday after a freelance journalist linked his social media account to a chilling threats. The threats were towards politicians and judges. So this is by Mary Pappenfuss and trends reporter at a Huffington Post. So it's Saturday, December 26th. So one of the comments posted on the deputy is "We the People Warrior" profile, a right-wing social media platform, Parler, called on followers to find the homes of politicians, liberal judges, and remove them from their sanctuary, and take back our state capitals. And the post also urged to find the homes of every governor, mayor, attorney general, liberal judge, senator, congressman, and every major media, social media CEO. Find them, remove them from their sanctuary, basically from their houses, and bring the nightmare to where they lay their heads and kiss their loved ones. So basically trying to incite fear, threaten, and possibly end the lives of these people. So is what it's sounding like. So show them that they are not untouchable. Um, so the deputy was identified as a local press report, in a local press report, and by the Washington Post as Aaron Hoffman is his name. So he was exposed by the Charlottesville freelance journalist Molly Conger, who revealed their post in her Twitter thread. And so Hoffman told the Post that the account was his, but insisted he didn't post the comments. "I do not make those posts," Hoffman said. "I'm trying to figure out who did." So he said that the comments also had disturbed him. And so by Saturday afternoon, all of Hoffman's social media accounts had either been set to a private or deleted. So another post from Hoffman's account included a threat to kill anyone who touched his children, to vaccinate them against COVID-19 without his consent. So not a threat, but a promise. And the post added that. So the person behind the "We the People Warrior" account also posted that he would become insanely violent if anyone tried to make him wear a face mask. And so there was also a threatening comment about Barack Obama, and a suggestion that was also threatening. There were threatening comments. The life of the Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts needs to be shortened. Roberts has become a particular target recently of the extreme right wing because of his lack of action to overturn the presidential election. So is this all making sense? Okay, so what's going on with Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts? Even Soros cheered Roberts at Davos. Okay, so Prince William Sheriff's Glendale Hill, Republican, told the Post that he had found that the comments were very despicable, and that's why he took the action that he took. He added, referring to Hoffman's firing. So I certainly don't approve. Now notice they fired this deputy immediately when he made threats to politicians, judges, people who have really high positions, and people who work in government. Notice they immediately got on this and they fired this officer. So I certainly don't approve of that. And of course, it's against our policy. So the sheriff's office issued a statement on Facebook Saturday noting that it had been notified about the disturbing comments being made on several social media outlets by this deputy sheriff who was not identified. They conceal who he is. They won't even let you know who he is. So they're protecting him, but yet they fired him. So because who he made the threats to. So, following an internal affairs investigation, the deputy has been terminated from employment with our office, the statement added. So, the office thanked the public for bringing that to their attention. Now, listen to that. The public brought it to their attention. But they're so busy looking at other people's social media, they didn't even see that one of their own deputies was on social media making death threats to judges and high officials and politicians. So people commenting on Facebook page hailed the quick action. Quick action, I believe, is because of who he was threatening by authorities, but feared that Hoffman might seek employment now on another police force. And many were also concerned that he's still apparently heavily armed. Conger reposted a Hoffman post on Parler showing off his weapons. Okay, so Molly Conger, deputy, okay. Says Deputy Hoffman isn't interested in marching in D.C. and not just because he can't take his gun, and he wants patriots to storm the homes of their local liberal judges and politicians to remove them. So that tells you right there. And look at all of the weapons, guys. Just take a look at these are like military, they look like military weapons. Okay? And the person, he had the audacity to post it. So my advice would be that when you post pictures of your arsenal along threats to kill judges and keep your government issue work vest that says sheriff on the front of it out of a picture, but what do I know? Okay, so this is really scary because there's a pandemic going on. People have been kind of cooped up, and this is what it's bringing out in some folks is violence, not only on social media, but there have been some shootings that have happened real recent in Illinois, and then I believe there was also a bomb blast that happened recently. And so they're looking into that, and so that's being investigated. So, an Arkansas police chief resigned last month after a Parler message calling for the death of the Marxist Democrats. Okay, so it was linked to him. So Lang Holland, now the former police chief of Marshall, initially claimed his account had been hacked, but later admitted that he had penned the post. So a lot of them, they will lie. They don't want to admit that they are the ones that are posting these threats, and they see that it's them. So I believe there's a video right here at the bottom, but I'm not going to play it. But look at all the guns, guys. Even if they fire this person has these guns in their home and they posted it on social media. So just think of somebody like that, and we're in the middle of the pandemic. People have been cooped up, and there has been protests, there's been anger and outrage. We have this right over here, people that are petitioning for change, in the events that took place over the summer that we learned of about George Floyd and then Breonna Taylor and some of the other people that have been killed due to police brutality. But now we have other protests going on the far right where they're calling for the death of basically to remove. I would think they would probably want to do harm. It seems pretty scary. Anytime you're showing your arsenal of guns, or you just want to torture someone, saying that they want to do in, high officials, people that are in high seats, and so judges, all the liberal judges, they said, and all the liberal you know, the Democrats and politicians and senators and congressmen, and it just seems pretty scary. So this is where we're at. It just doesn't end. So recently, Donald Trump, he didn't want to sign the COVID relief bill. And so that's just from what I've heard, it's just been sitting there. But what he has done is he said that he thought that $600 wasn't enough. It should be increased to 2,000, and then for couples 4,000. Which I don't argue against that. But what I do know is that it feels as though now that there's another motive behind this, that he might be trying to get. I don't say it's a might, I believe it is, that he's trying to get back at the Republicans. He knew the Democrats weren't going to be okay with it, but the Republicans were not going to be okay with increasing the amount of money for Americans to 2,000, from 600 to 2,000. So he knows that it's going to stall things, and so it's sort of like he's getting his revenge for people who didn't support him on the election. And so this is where we're at. And so what I've noticed here, I'll say in the good old Los Angeles, is the numbers have gone up of people who have gotten sick. There are lines. In some places, you have to stand outside before you go inside a place of business that is indoors, because they don't want people. They're really strict now on people getting infected. And they will forewarn people if you do go into business and they allow you to go in there. They have signs posted everywhere forewarning you to be aware, to stay 6 feet apart, and they also offer hand sanitizer and these wipes for your baskets if you're gonna go shopping, because it's that bad. And so some places, if the place is too small and it will be too much crowding, they have people standing outside waiting to go in. And I'm going to give you an example. A lot of the young people, you can't go to the beach, you can't go to the movies, you're risk going to a party. Those things are dangerous. So what are a lot of young people doing? Video games. And so there's this thing that the young adults, young teenagers and older teenagers alike, and youth, when they get bored and they want some entertainment, they're watching movies. If they're not watching movies, they're playing video games. And so that is their new normal entertainment right now. And so GameStop and all these video game places are making money. And what I've noticed is some of the places, if they're really small, not everybody can go inside, so they have people standing outside. And if you want to purchase something, you have to wait a few minutes, and then you go in and you purchase something. I don't know if you purchase time for your game or whatever. I don't know how that goes, but that's a lot of the youth. I noticed they've kind of gone to, if it isn't reading books or creating something or music, it is video games, and that is the thing that they are doing. What I've noticed too is that the rent moratorium. Now, I saw an article saying that Beyonce extended her moratorium, her donation for a moratorium, that is, and I believe it may be in Houston. I'm not sure if it may be just for the city of Houston. So I believe it was 500,000, and she had already donated, but she's donating more, and so that's so people that will have extra money, so that they won't be evicted. Now here in Los Angeles, I think our moratoriums go till the end of January the 31st, but it could possibly get extended. Someone was who I guess works in that department was trying to get it extended all the way to December 2021. I don't know if they can do that or not, so that's something we have to wait and see on. But what I do know is that the rent isn't free. It's halted, but we're required to pay 25% of our rent if we have lost our jobs. And then you have to show proof that you lost your job, or your hours have been cut, or you're having a hardship, because due to COVID. Because some jobs, maybe the hours weren't cut, maybe the jobs closed down because somebody got sick or they're quarantining or whatever. And so a lot of that has happened out here in California. I don't know if it's happening where you live, but that's what I've noticed for the most part. This right here, there's a lot of violence going on because of the election. It's still leading to that, and on social media, it's dangerous. People will literally leave threatening comments if you're for a certain position or you didn't vote for Trump or you mention anything that's political. Some people have a problem over it. And so this is where we're at. And so I'm going to do something here. What is it called? Change.org. Okay, so I'm actually going to the site. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this might be the same site where I saw okay, so this is the petition. Start a petition, the world's platform for change, change.org. So I believe this is where you do the petitions. Demand justice for Kesey Christian. So 2,000 a month for every American. There's a petition on that. So justice for George Floyd. Stop no-knock warrants. Oh, this is interesting. Mules for Black Lives Matter. Reopen schools. All kinds of petitions. Coronavirus epidemic. First responders. So it goes on down the list. And so these are there's Breonna Taylor and Justice for Breonna Taylor. And so this right here was what? Okay, so this is a petition that Lorelli is counting on you to sign the petition. So these are the demands, and I believe it's also on a site that the family put together as well. I don't know if it's included in here, if it mentions it or not. Breonna Taylor has an award-winning EMT and model citizens. She's a model citizen. She loved her family and community, working in 2 hospitals as an essential worker over 6 months ago. Division of Louisville Department, and so it goes on. Blah blah blah. I guess it's looking for supporters. So I guess it reminds people every now and then and again. So okay, so it says unannounced. Okay, so the police department performed an illegal unannounced drug raid on her home, executing a discriminatory botched no-knock warrant. Not a single officer announced himself before ramming down her door and firing 22 shots, shooting Breonna 6 times, killing her, according to her lawyer, boyfriend, neighbor, and relatives. And so also named on the warrant was Jamarcus Glover, who had already been arrested earlier that day. The officer, Joshua James, or whatever, James, lied. Okay, and so this is basically going over the whole incident to obtain no-knock warrant on Breonna's residence, citing that the U.S. Postmaster had claimed that Breonna was receiving illegal packages at her home. The U.S. Postmaster later testified that he had never verified these claims, so the police were dressed in plain clothes, and then they knocked Breonna's door down in the middle of the night. Kenneth Walker, her boyfriend, fired a single shot, believing that someone had broken into their apartment. So in response, the officer fired multiple rounds, killing Breonna as well. No one has been held accountable till this day for the systemic failure that caused Breonna's death. Charges must be filed immediately. The officers involved, specifically John Mattingly, Brett Hanskinson, Miles Cosgrove, Joshua Janez, and any other law enforcement officer that was involved in the death and the cover-up of the death of Breonna Taylor must be fired, charged, and arrested immediately. There have been no charges thus far, so it has been over 7 months, and their pensions must be revoked. Her family must be paid in damages for wrongful death and negligence of the LMPD. And so I believe they were paid, so this might have been posted before. So Kentucky Governor and Bashir must speak up on behalf of Breonna, and the Governor Bashir, Attorney General Daniel Cameron, must appoint a special prosecutor to investigate the Louisville Police Department immediately. An in-house investigation is unacceptable. And so the no-knock warrant, that's number 4, that the police had used on Breonna's murder, completely violates the constitutional right to reasonable search and seizure. So by law, people must be legally obligated to announce themselves before breaking and entering in your home, privately owned and by an American civilians. And so legislation to federally ban no-knock warrants must be passed in Congress, and so to sign by the president. But what happened to Breonna was a complete violation of her constitutional rights and the threats to rights of all Americans. So Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky has voiced similar concerns. A special session must be intervened by the Congress to discuss the constitutionality of the no-knock warrants immediately. So number 5, we demand a prosecutor and a new grand jury hearing. Recent testimonies released by the brave jurors involved in the grand jury hearing have revealed quite clearly that the conflict of interest involved in allowing Daniel Cameron to serve as the prosecutor on this case. So his partisans' interest and position within the GOP have clearly influenced his ability to fulfill his responsibility as an AG, Attorney General, and officer in the law. His conduct in the case and his complete disregard for the injustice and tragedy that occurred to Breonna Taylor. And so it's completely unacceptable. So this has carried on for about 7 months. For weeks, the city treated Breonna like she was a criminal, calling her a suspect before finally admitting that she was innocent, a crimeless victim, and she has no drugs. She committed no crime, yet she's dead, and the perpetrators are facing no charges till this day. And so she was not only an exemplary citizen, but an essential one. And she was the daughter and friend of an American hero, the most important person. She's daughter and friend and an American hero, and most importantly, a person. She deserves to be treated as such. So in what world is it fair, just, or legal to kill a crimeless victim in their own home and call it an accident? So you cannot kill an innocent woman and chalk it up to a clerical error. So at the very least, we must hold the system that killed Breonna Taylor accountable. Let's get justice for Breonna Taylor and say her name. So please help me get the word out and share this campaign on your social media platform. Thank you to everyone and who is helping in our fight to get justice for Breonna Taylor. Okay, so that, I believe, because when it mentioned in there to get money for the family, this might have been placed way before, like early on, like when the incident had occurred. So I believe there might be 3 photos in there of her. And so it's just sad that this is happening, and till this day, this woman nobody's been held accountable for her murder, and that's really sad. And so I believe there is another site, that's one site, change.org, but there's another site where the mother has also things that she's expecting this new administration, Biden and Harris administration, to hold themselves responsible for in terms of some changes that need to be made in terms of law enforcement and some of the things that have happened um, from these incidences and in the future, the near future. And so it's crazy, but what baffles me is that they have not arrested. They figured, I guess, the money that the family received, and they did. I think they had Ben Crump that was representing them. So I believe they got a payout. Um, the family, and I believe that it was, if I'm not mistaken, it it may have been 12 million. Okay, so there's so many different things in here about. Okay, so the officer charged, he pleads not guilty. They still have not done anything about this. It's really sad. So I could see why the mother is really wanting more done about this. Money is not the only thing. Okay, so I want to see if it comes up. So, yeah, it was 12 million. So Louisville to pay 12 million to Breonna Taylor's family, and it has a settlement which is historic, but also called for the officers involved in Taylor's death to be held criminally accountable. We won't let Breonna. Okay, so we won't let this case go. So that's why I think it's crazy, because it was in CBS News that they paid 12 million to Breonna Taylor's family, but I believe that her family has a website up now, and basically it is a call for police reform. And yeah, so this is sad. So 6 months after the emergency medical worker Breonna Taylor was shot dead by police in her home, the city of Louisville has agreed to a major settlement with the Taylor's family in a wrongful death lawsuit. And so the settlement includes 12 million payout for the family, along with an array of police reforms. So Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher announced at a press conference Tuesday, so I cannot begin to imagine. So it cuts off. I guess there's an ad. Cannot begin to imagine Miss Palmer's pain, and I am deeply, deeply sorry for Breonna's death, Fisher said, referring to the Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer. So I believe I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to read it. But that's the amount that they paid the family. And I believe Tamika Palmer, Breonna's mom, has a website now in reference to her daughter and what has happened, and then other people's sons and daughters who's been killed with incidents that are similar to these. And so it's really sad. But anyway, I'm gonna let this video go. But it seems like this pandemic has brought either the good out in people or the worst out in people. And so the other thing on that note is that I think the other big thing is that they've been sending vaccines here to Los Angeles and to some other cities that have like really high numbers of COVID. And so, but some of the people who already have like allergies might have had, there's a few people that have showed some allergic reaction and others that may haven't. So they've got one by Pfizer, one by Moderna, and then I believe there's some others that are rolling out vaccines. So right now, the first ones, Moderna and Pfizer, you have to take 2 doses. I think one of them you have to take 2 doses, 1 dose, and it's like 28 days apart. And so then I guess you go back for the second dose. But then there's another one I heard supposed to be coming out where it's 1 dose. And I believe that's the one they want to give the general population so they can roll that out quicker. Because chances are, I think they think maybe it might be risky doing 1 dose and then expecting people to go back for their second. Because people, when they get busy or maybe they feel like I already had a vaccine, I had the 1 shot. Why do I need 2 shots? So some vaccines you need 2 shots. I know Pfizer and Moderna. There's another one you only need 1 dose. So I guess it's that strong or whatever. But I think people are waiting to see what the reactions are going to be with the people who've already gotten vaccinated. Then there's going to be this growing debate, like what I just showed you on this one article where the guy got mad. He's basically threatening people if you try to make him wear a mask, there might be confrontation. There are some people like that who will refuse to wear masks. There is a famous guy, I can't think of his name, but he's been Christmas caroling. He was Christmas caroling with people. They didn't have face masks, and this was, I believe, not long ago. Um, I I would like to say it was in Orange County. I think I'm right. I think that's where it was happening. It was happening somewhere here, um, not too far out, but it was a big problem because the concern is that even right now the concern is that surge is being blamed on people gathering during Thanksgiving. And so they're worried that people are still going to gather, that they gather for Christmas, and then we've got New Year's. What happens on New Year's? Parties, gathering again. So they're worried about that. And so we still are not out of the woods at all on any of this. I think actually things are just beginning. Some businesses have closed permanently. Some are on the verge of closing. Some are defying the orders because they're more militant about staying open. So this is where we're at. And so I heard something about there's some new laws coming into effect. Anyway, I'm just merely reading articles, things that are current events, and tying them together. It's not anything malicious, but I just feel like it all kind of goes together. It makes sense. You have this going on here. A deputy, isn't that scary? He's a deputy. He's law, and he's threatening politicians. He's threatening people. And that right there, that's very scary. He's showing his arsenal. But you don't hear anything about Trump trying to pursue those people. I don't understand, why you don't see that is more dangerous than people protesting for people to be held accountable for when they are participating in really life-threatening acts towards people of color. You find that threatening, and here you had this Virginia deputy who basically he posted online how he was going to pursue threatening high officials that are from a different political spectrum. So it's just crazy to me. It just seems like it hasn't gotten any better before it's getting worse, if you get what I'm saying. But this right here, I think this is only the beginning. And then I saw something where Dr. Fauci was saying, I believe that there's going to be even darker days. Isn't it? That's just scary even more. And that's about the COVID, basically saying that more deaths are going to happen. Do you know how long the general population has to wait until the summer of 2021? Since people are dying, how many more people are going to get sick from now? A lot can happen in a couple of days. A lot can happen in a couple of weeks. A whole lot can happen in a couple of months. From now all the way till almost summer of 2021 to give medicine to people, all this death, do you really think that we're going to make it? That's the scary part. And so, with this holidays, people gathering, getting together and everything, I don't know if it's going to work. I really don't. Some people may survive, but I don't think everybody is going to be able to handle all of that. I don't know. They make it seem like there's more to this that they're not telling us. That's the scary part. The way he says, oh, there's darker days. I feel like more stuff's going to happen. There's more things that is going to happen, more things that we're not being told. And so it builds my curiosity. But anyway, I'm going to let this video go. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for listening.